Alrighty, hi everyone. Welcome to the latest and greatest blog post. Now, here's something that I get asked about quite a bit. It's the ability to create a form that has a repeating section in it. Now, I'm going to click on New Item here, and notice I have a repeating section, and I can select some items. Oops, do number 2, number 3, and we'll add, for example, let's do 10, 20, and 30. And we'll call this Groundskeeper Willie. Oops, I cannot spell. There we go. Okay, and click on Save. Now, here's where I get the real question. It's not just a matter of I want to create an item in here with a repeating section. I want to then take those items and I actually want to put them in another list, right? So notice I've got Groundskeeper Willie. If I open this up, I have my item 1, 2, and 3, 10, 20, 30. Okay, so that's my orders list. I also have an order items list. And if I go in here, notice I have 15 to 20. Those are the current IDs. If I refresh this, there's my 10, 20, 30, right? So I've created some new items based off of the original order. Okay, so now what we have is we have an original form. Somebody fills it in. It creates some order items, and it creates those items in another list. But where it gets a little bit, I guess, fuzzy is people say, well, what if somebody goes into this item and they want to modify this item and they actually, maybe it's in the middle of an approval process and we actually want to modify the order and change it. I made a mistake. I didn't mean item 3. I actually made item 2 again. What happens then? All right, so let's have a look at what this original form looked like. When I clicked on new item, it showed me this form, right? And I go and create a bunch of, let's do it again. 3, in this case, we'll do 100, 200, 300. But one thing you should notice is this box on the left. Now, this is not an editable box, right? I can't do anything in here, but they're all blank, right? So if I go in here and go Principal Skinner, oops, Skinner, and do this, all these fields are empty. I click on Save. All right, it kicks off a workflow. So I have a workflow in here called Process New Order Workflow. And we click Refresh. All right, and it's done. If I now go and edit this item again, notice those blank fields that were read-only, they now have values in them. They have 24, 25, 26. If I go to my order items lists, right, and I refresh it, notice 24, 25, 26, my 100, 200, 300 quantity, it's created these items, but it's also grabbed this ID for each one of those, and it's updated the appropriate record in this repeating section. Alrighty. So now here's the question. What if I want to edit this? What if I want to go in here and actually say, you know what? I actually wanted 400 of these, right? Notice the number, the calculation will change. I click on Save. I have a workflow that runs now called Process Order Updated Workflow. Click on Refresh. It's completed. If I go to my order items list where I had 100, 200, 300, if I click Refresh, it now has 100, 200, 400. Okay, getting a little bit more interesting here. Now let's edit this item. And what if I want to add a new row? Add a new row, maybe add item 2 again. This one I'm going to do 50. So notice what it looks like now. I have IDs for these, but I have nothing for this because we don't really have an item yet. When I click on Save, again, we have a workflow that runs. Click on Refresh. It's completed. If I go back to my order items list, where I have my 100, 200, 400, if I refresh, I now have 100, 200, 400, and my 50. Pretty interesting. Yeah, okay. Now, what happens? So we've got it handling if somebody creates an order and also edits the order, edits existing order items, and even creates new order items in an existing order. So what happens if we go to the other side? What if we go over here and say, I'm in the order list or the order items list, and I want to say I need to change the 50. I actually wanted 25. I made a complete boo-boo there. So let's change that to 25. Click on save. Now we have a workflow here that runs called order item updated. It's in progress. Let's click on refresh. That's completed. Let's go back to my original item and have a look at it. And where it said 50, it now says 25. So now we have workflows that support linking items in this repeating section to another list and items in that list linking back to the repeating section. So it doesn't matter where you modify the items, it will, make sure that this is in sync. The only thing that I guess it doesn't support is if somebody goes in and creates new items in the order items list, which is probably not going to be very often that somebody's going to want to do something like that. You could cater for that, but I would say in this case, what I've done is limited it so that when you actually edit this item or create new items in here, you don't get to pick the order ID, right? You don't get to pick the order, it already knows it, right? So all we're doing here is actually, behind the scenes, we know the order ID, so it's editing an existing item. Creating a new item doesn't make sense because I've hidden that particular selection. So you're never going to be able to create an item in this list and link it to an existing order. Okay, so the question is, how exactly did we just do this? So I'm going to go into my orders list here. Let's cancel out of that. I'm not going to go through all the bits and pieces here because there's not a lot here, but it's going to get a little boring if I go through every single piece. First of all, here's my repeating section. I want to show you how I did this. I have a control here. It's just a single line of text, and I have a rule here called disable this control. It's a really simple rule. If we are in new mode or edit mode, right, you can see the little or function right there. I want to disable that control. So basically, I want this control to be disabled all the time, right? This is not going to be an editable control. This control here is a list lookup to a stock list that we have, which is just our items, our quantities that we have, and the cost per item. And then we do a calculation based off of what you selected, multiplied by the quantity, give me the cost it's going to be. So that's pretty much it. And then we link this particular repeating section to a multiple lines of text, plain text field called RS order items. So that's pretty much it for this particular form. We do have two workflows on this list called orders, and we have this one here that is just going through, it's querying the repeating section, excuse me. We're iterating through each one of those records in the repeating section. I have a run if here to check to make sure that that field right here is empty. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in a new item form because that's always going to be empty. So this field here, or this action here is a little redundant. We're going and pulling out the stock item ID, the quantity, and the cost. We're going over here and creating the item. So what we'll do here is we'll actually say create item in the order items list. We're doing a math operation. Now, this is just something for you guys to be aware of because the index into a collection, right? So collections in Nintex Workflow actually start at 0, or the index for a collection starts at 0, but the index into XML starts at 1. So this math operation is simply adding 1 to the index so we update the appropriate value in the repeating section XML. Right now, you'll see here we're actually just saying find the appropriate item and update the order item ID. Right, so we just all we're doing is we don't have to change any other values other than we're setting this value right here. Right, okay, so that's basically all this workflow does. We also have another workflow on the orders list that is doing a couple of different things. One is it checks whether the item was actually updated by a human or a workflow, right? So if it's updated by a workflow, we're just going to reset that. We have a field on the list called updated by workflow, and we're going to just set that to false, right? And we're going to exit out the workflow. If it was updated by a human, then we're actually saying that somebody went into this order and updated it, right? A person actually came in and updated this particular order. And then we're doing a couple of things here. So let's actually have a look. We're saying go through and find all the values in all the rows in that repeating section. oops, I'm in the wrong thing right here. So we're still going to do the same thing, right? We're querying the XML, we're pulling out all the values from each of those rows, and then we're doing a couple of things here. We're actually saying, is this a new item, like a new order item, or are we updating an existing item? In this case, if I go into here, am I updating one of these items? So am I setting this to 5, or am I actually creating uh, a new item? That's basically what this little section is doing. So if it's updating, it'll update the existing XML or updating the item in the order items list. Otherwise, we're creating a new item in the order items list, and we're updating the XML with the new item ID. Right? So that's basically what that is. Now on the order items list, we also have a workflow. So if somebody goes in here and modifies the item in here, again, same sort of thing. We have a, was it updated by a workflow? So if it's true, we just update that back to false and exit out the workflow. Otherwise, we go in here and we say, find the appropriate order. And again, I'll relabel these actions so it makes a little bit more sense. So we're going to find the appropriate order. We're going to pull out the repeating section XML. We're going to update that XML, right? So we're going to actually say, because this item was updated, we need to go back to the original form and update the repeating section. And then we're going to take that XML, I'm going to update it on that order item, sorry, on that order, and we're good to go. So you can see it's not really that difficult to start putting together a process like this. So if you want to have that synchronization between your orders, your original form, and those items that you create in another sublist. Okay, I hope this helps. Like I said, I'm going to go through and I'm going to update the actions in my workflows and label them a little bit so it makes things a little bit easier for you guys to understand what this is actually doing. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to post them at the bottom of this blog post and I'll try to tackle those. This is not going to be the most obvious process or easiest necessarily to understand, but hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions. All right, thanks for your time, and let me know if you guys are interested in any other blog posts.